Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Africa. We got this huge continent. Thank you for clicking. And in today's video lecture, we would like to zoom into the country called Zimbabwe. A big country from Dutch perspective, and a country that has had sometimes a more difficult youth. When I was young, it was still called Rhodesia. It was loaded with apartheid and all kind of other horrors that almost daily you could watch in the news. And today I want to look at a different place, Zimbabwe. That is what I would like to talk to you about. Welcome to Zim. Africa's friendliest vibe awaits you, and I would like to challenge you to perhaps sometimes take that plane, because it's a completely different life that awaits you after 10 to 12 hours of flying. As I said, Zimbabwe's past is at times it was troubled, and even nowadays it's not always the easiest for people living there. And you have to remember that once it was the breadbasket of Africa and also exporting a lot to the world, and now it would be among the poorest. Infrastructure is a challenge. There's load shedding all the time, the power cuts, and you don't know when it comes, and all of a sudden whoosh, you're without. And that you can see that in societies they also kind of start to live with that. Internet can be pretty shaky, but I should say the people I know from there are so warm and have such an inspiring way of dealing with that and solving it, and very entrepreneurial. We are here on the flag, on the globe. This is the area that we are focusing on in this lecture. Country code for phone calls is 263.co.zw. And if you want to fly, it's about 12 hours and 10 minutes. Two kind of sockets, the ones that you usually would see in South Africa. They're the biggest. I wanted to show you one, but it doesn't really help on the video. But it's so big, you can kill somebody with it. And the typical British type of with the 3 rectangular pins, also a murder weapon, I would say. But supposedly also the South African is the safest, they say. If we look at population, it's actually not that different. The growth of the population is not always what it's expected, and also diaspora has a serious impact. I suppose when GDP will rise and stability in, mostly in the production, then it will steeply grow, because it could be twice as large if food supplies and everything would work. In size, it is 9.5 times bigger, so it is a very, very big country. Let's go to Zimbabwe. I had an aunt who actually did it by car in a Volkswagen van. She drove with my cousins and her husband to all the way to the Netherlands. So you can do it by car, but that would be crazy. I would say go for the planes. There's not always direct flights, so you might have to go through Heathrow or Paris, or take one from Germany, or also Brussels has a lot of connections to more French Belgium. A picture. And this is the lobby of a hotel in Harare, I stated, and it's just funky because it looks also a bit local, and it has those elements which I thought was cute. Yeah, it's the very distinctive sound of the mbira. Kalimba is more something that is used afterwards, but more known by Western people. But it's what we call in musicology a lamellophone. And this is one where you actually see the things on bottles. That's so inventive now, and sound is really nice, and it's a kind of finger plucking traditional musical instrument. There, and then they have that with the shells on it and things, but it really works, and people play it, and they play it also usually at yeah. Kind of ceremonies that people use to try to connect to the ancestors, to the people who have passed away. But in the culture of Zimbabwe and more in Africa, actually, this is very important to connect to ancestors. And what people do is that this music is kind of in a kind of hypnotizing sound, and people try to get into trance and connect to spirits. And they also do that. Mbira is always with bira. If you speak a Latin language, makes you sound like beer. Well, that's actually the combination. Mbira is the instrument, and bira is the drink, the beverage. And it's self-made beer also. I'll explain that in a minute. This is the only country in Africa where it's actually became the national instrument of Zimbabwe, and it's taken very serious. And if you ever hear it, it's quite beautiful. And you know, you sit outside, there's these big trees, and the food, the fruit, it's real. You've never had a chicken or avocado the size of a coconut, and it's so pure. So that's something you really enjoy. And then people also live and eat outside. It's very much a community, and people really make you feel welcome and warm. So yeah, that is something that only in Africa, I would say. Um, Another thing is that what it's very known for is, of course, Victoria Falls, the Niagara Falls of Africa. It's one of the world's biggest. It's more than 1.5 kilometers wide and 1 million liters of water per second. That is when the river is flowing. The majestic Zambezi river is flowing with a lot of water. The best view you actually get from the Zimbabwean side. And yeah, if you want to really see it, you should take the helicopter flights. Of course, it's a tourist trap, but and this is definitely not Zimbabwe, but it's still breathtaking, amazing, makes you feel like a tiny, tiny human being. So sometimes you have to do these things. Although you know that you're being screwed for the money, there is something really amazing those are memories. I want to talk a little bit about food, and I start with Wawa. This is what I just referred to with the Mbira. Um, what they have is they have the kind of bowls, clay balls, and they put in local grains. And depending on where you are in Zimbabwe, that could be different. So it could be certain kind of grain, could be certain kind of maize, could be other things that they use. Then there's boiling water in it. They leave it, and after a while, it starts to ferment. And that is actually when you start to also have the alcoholic process. And so this is family recipes, family made. It doesn't always look super hygienic when you see it foaming in a clay pot, standing somewhere on a clay floor or sand around it, and there's animals nearby. But this is yeah, a pure way. What is it used for? It is something that also there's no age limit. So when boys and girls are a little bit old enough, they drink it. So they could be 14 or younger, perhaps. And then it's just having fun, but there's a very ceremonial element to it. So it's not fun to get drunk, not at all. It's really a very serious community thing where, especially in the villages, but also a lot of people in the cities have a past in the villages, so they want to have that kind of style. And then you drink, and you drink to connect to those that are not with us anymore. So Wawa is not just a beverage. Every drop of Wawa is about identity, community, family, and that's really what Zimbabweans really care about, I would say. It's much more a community society than individual society in that sense. And a lot of your behavior and expected style, they know you're a Westerner, so that's all fine. But their system is very different. Now here you can see it. As I told you, it doesn't always look too appealing, but it's not that strong. It's less strong than typical beer that we have here. But it's just like palm wine, you know, this it's so easy to get that stuff, and you don't need to have income or money. You just need a bit of boiling water and some grain. So it's pure. And yes, it does get you seriously drunk. But there's also an amazing experience with the music, and it's a kind of calling where one says something and then the group responds. And yeah, if you're in that and there's fire, it's amazing. Um, what kind of makes you smile at times is that everything is called a Coke, whether it's a Fanta or something else, it's called Coke. And also, I understood that all, if you want to brush your teeth, it's always called the brand name. So that's the first, the advantage of being the first. This is food that is made out of mice, and it's a kind of, very thick, it's like mashed potatoes, but then it's with meat and with veggies. And yeah, you eat that way, colorful dishes. This is what is maybe of surprise to you, but then again, you also might enjoy shrimp. And this is a flying shrimp. So what they do is that they have, especially also the, what's it called? Is it cockroach? No, I think so. It's these, my English is not always my first language, but they take the insects and they take the wings off and then they first dry them. Um, they can be fried a first time and salted. They leave them to dry. Then it's a second time they fry them. And then, you eat that with this kind of base. And people enjoy that actually. And there's more. Then we also have the Madora, and what we see there is that they do clean them. So elements are out. It can be bigger, sometimes a little bit more white with colorful black and reddish on it. But um, what can I say? If you look at how meat or fish is being slaughtered, it's also not a very pretty sight. So in that sense, it's not that different from eating insects and edible insects. You have to realize that Zimbabwe was not always rich at times in history, and it's not that long ago. We get to talk about the financial part later, but then this is very rich in protein, and the diet is, let's say, scientists agree with the Zimbabwean eating of insects. It's good. It's less pressure on the planet, and there is an abundance of insects certain moments, and then it kind of seems logical. So probably our great 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 grandmothers and grandfathers are made to also eat insects and little seeds and other things. So it is good for our diet, in fact, like the Korean and Chinese that eat dogs, that actually is better than a steak for your body. That's what can I say? This is eating insects. Some more of the foaming. This one looks a little bit cleaner, but usually after a while the bubbles get over it and it looks a little bit weird, like an off cappuccino. Um, can you buy it in the Netherlands? I haven't found it, but there is some dispense. Of course, it's Afrikaans, but there is also a lot of connection between South Africa and Zimbabwe, and so they also sell a few products from Zimbabwe. Big country, this is the flag. Of course, in the past it was always with the Union Jack, but this is now what it is. And the golden bird is used in other things as well. It's a very old society. In Europe, we have these caves where we admire the drawings, but definitely also in Zimbabwe, there's beautiful old society, hundreds, thousands of years old. You also have these incredible mountains with the stones that like this, and you actually also see those stones on the money. And the stones have always been there. The money I'll get to talk about in a bit, because you need so much of that stuff. And it's only recently that they introduced a new currency. The Zimbabwe's dollar is no longer, it was a year ago, and I still have a couple. But look at some of these currencies, because this one is $50 million, and we see some nice elephants, and it's the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. Um, this is on or before the 30th June of 2008. Issue date 2nd of April. So apparently this is a temporarily one, because on the bill they already say that on the 2nd of April they will have on the 3rd of June they will have a new system. So this is actually $50 million. But on this one, and this is a little bit before, we see also the stones again, but we also see this. Look at this number, these zeros that are there. This is $10 trillion. Yeah, so you need a lot. This one is $100 trillion, and they move like the weather. And it means that there is a serious problem of foreign currency, and on the exchange rate is going down. So they keep on renewing the system. Now, it's recently that they have, yeah, I really like 50 Cent, or as we call him in Zimbabwe, $4 billion. A girl only interested in dating trillionaires, and I just showed you my $10 trillion. So a Zimbo guy smiles. But I think he should get out of that platform and go into real life. Yeah, so we have at the moment Zimbabwe gold. This is the ZIG. The ZIG is the sixth attempt since 2008, which also is funny because it's a 50 million Zimbabwe's dollar bill, which says, well, this is issued in February, but it's only valid until June on the bill. Can you imagine? So legally tight, but also disaster, because what we see is that people don't want to pay with this. So we see those bills, but they hardly are used. They want American dollars or any other currency, that's euro to some extent, but or at the moment pound sterling, but it's usually American dollars. That is the real money. So if you use cash, that's it. This is the brand new one. It's still a picture where it says specimen, which means it's it's at the central bank. But this is the ZIG, and we no longer have the dollar. And now we see 10, 20, 50, and 100, and it's connected to a load of gold, but already on the markets we can see that it's imploding, and it's going to be the same story all over again, which is no surprise because it's the same country and the same economy. So it's a disaster. It's really, yeah, they're really in trouble. But think of the people that want to feed their children. It's not always fun. What we see is that Zimbabwe has a multi-currency system. So whatever they introduce at the central bank, I think US dollar is king. So cash is king. Local notes, they are there, and I have a few, but they hardly exist. It's not what people carry. That's US dollars. Or you use an app like EcoCash, and you just have, mobile money. But people on market still would prefer to have dollars, because also you don't know if such a thing implodes. It doesn't represent gold, the gold standard. So EcoCash is a lot used for smaller things and accepted, but yeah, it's troublesome, and people are very inventive in that way. Nevertheless, Harare, the capital, has the largest tobacco auction in the world. It's huge, and it's 2 million kilo a day when they have just when the harvest is available and dried. It's an enormous place, and on these planks that you see, these wooden planks, there, people come check out the lots, and this is the biggest in the world. So a lot of people come there. It is very much a Protestant society. Church is strong. And church has been very influential. On the other hand, Robert Mugabe, the longtime president, started as a war hero, but ended probably as a dictator. But he was a Catholic, despite the fact that more than 80% of society is actually Protestant. Now, as a British colony, that's how yeah it got institutionalized through missionaries that were there and were promoting their personal religion. What we also see is that a lot of local practices were kind of incorporated and which the Vatican would never permit, but as a reality became also much part of the tradition. At the moment, we also see there is all kind of new regional, very popular churches. Also, even here in Europe, you see that they're very active, even the Zimbabwe's communities. They believe in mermaids, and they're not the sweet, adorable mermaids that you read to your children when they're small, and Disney movies that have lovely, but they're actually the opposite of the mermaid. And they are murderers. They kidnap and torture people. So they're very beautiful and look very sexy, but they're dangerous. So how can you appease them? By drinking lots of traditional beer and offering it to the mermaids. Zimbabwe was a very rich and powerful kingdom, I would say, in the past, and there are still elements of it where you can really see beautiful, beautiful things that they have. What really impressed me was the headrest. I don't know if you ever saw that, but you have these kind of wooden things, and you lie with it with just behind your, not your neck, not your head, but the middle of it, and you lie in it. And when you think it's gonna break my bones, but I assure you, it's very comfortable, provided you lie on the back, because otherwise, as a man, it's not going to work. So this is, especially in Zimbabwe, there is the carving of it, and that is very. These decorations are more meaningful than you think. They're not just decorations, because we also see that it matches with the cicatrization marks, which means little razor blades that you open up the skin, and then the tissue changes and it becomes like tattoos, which is ink, but this is done with scarves, and the scarves are done in a pattern that is seen as beauty. And the word Niora, that's what we would use for those carving techniques in Shona language. But you see more or less the same also on the headrests. So that was amazing. Again, you can buy them, and particularly in Zimbabwe, where also they have these stone carved statues, they're really beautiful. They're really good. So there are a lot of, and the Ndele have very beautiful and colorful clothing, different from Zulu, which there are some elements in the language also that are comparable. But the Shona have a more black and white, more subtle kind of, but it's very amazing. The traditional, of course, it's hardly there and it's there for the tourists. But if you get to see it, or the museum or particular things, it's very special. Here we see the Niora, so a guy on the left, a lady, and that is done with little very sharp objects, and then you cut, and then in a certain way it becomes a kind of skin jewelry that is not only jewelry, it's also status. And the scarification was, yeah, the Shona aesthetics. And it's not just beauty, it's not just status, but it's also lust. So it is connected also to belly, hips, breast, and sexuality was dealt with in a very unchristian way. So there is also research done that it was also, yeah, it was erotical to touch the scarf, and that would kind of like give a certain kind of pleasure. I don't know. I don't want to do it. I'm not interested. But there is a lot of literature about it. Um, but it is something that is really typical there, and yeah, amazing if you think of it, and the whole world around it. Human beings are so fascinating at times, and they have all these ways. Well, they definitely have these ways in their own way in Zimbabwe. The younger generation is completely kind of stepped out of that, so it's not really there anymore. It's just tattoos and want to look like rap artists and things like that. Some pictures, but it's good because the images that we have on our lens about Africa are often so wrong. They're there to ask for donor money for other things, but there's very smart people and very sweet people and very nice people that have ideas and amazing taste and eat insects. So you often have a kind of image, but where does that image come from? And is it fair? Is it fair to yourself? Is it fair to Zimbabwe? No, it isn't. I want to talk a little bit about what our course is supposed to be offering: business skills. Couple of elements that are important to realize, although you also have to see what is the. But I think if it works sometimes in Africa, we will see that it could be the motor for a new a wave in economics that could really, you know, if it starts the same with India, if that starts to move in South Asia, it's massive. And and then you'll be happy that you looked into African business skills. Zimbo communication preferences. It's very subtle. It's very almost Asian. It's almost it's closer to Japan than to the Netherlands, you know, or the US. Confrontation is avoided in a very polite way because it's not a good thing. Feedback will be coming through storytelling or little hints that but it's very light, so you can laugh at the story, but actually it was a message to you. So you could ask open questions, not a yes/no question. And the problem is that most Western cultures are very much pointed towards the yes or no. There is no middle. It's black or white. There's no gray, but life is gray. It's very slow in talking, and to rush it is just plain rude. So it would be really recommended to, you know, take time. Forget about your agenda, flush your diary, because it's not going to help anyway. What is very important is the human interpersonal warmth, and people towards strangers from a community spirit are super kind, and you're not used to that, and probably they think you're terrible, but they will never directly confront you, and feedback will come wrapped in stories. You've heard about Ubuntu, which is often with a picture of the former president of South Africa, but Hunu would it be in the Shona language. It is South Africa, and Zimbabwe, formerly Rhodesia, was also very much connected to South Africa always. So, and also were the tribes, because the borderlines were just made by colonizers. So we see that philosophy that is about the importance of the group. And the Bele calls it Umuntu Nugumuntu, etc. I don't speak the languages, but you are a person because of the other people. And that is something that a Westerner simply will not be able to comprehend, because it's not something we do. But I see that, for instance, sometimes in China, they a little bit complain that we are too much on our own. And when they come here, they say, yeah, but you're all on your own. There is nobody with you. You have to do everything. And that is weird. And the group is probably the way that we are originally made as a species. We're also groups, and we like our space, but you particularly grew up in it. Yeah, this kind of I am because we are is an important concept that you don't always understand, but it's actually quite beautiful. There you go. Now we translated cross-cultural business skills into Shona, which is the largest language, but there's more languages, many. I want to talk a little bit about time management because that is the thing after individualism that is mostly going to be your clash, your culture crash and clash and everything. There's three versions of now, the Zimbo style. Now means maybe today, could be tomorrow. Now it's just, whether you breathe. Just now could be many, many hours later. And now means now at this moment. Zim time smiles at your schedule, at your calendar. And the first business skill that we need to learn when we land in Harare would be patience, or when you go to Mombasa. So patience is something that you don't have, but you have to accept that time is very fluid, and it is a relationship culture, and it's also a way. Sometimes people just are there, but it doesn't mean they work. What can I say? Time is flexible. People are always first, also on the phone. A lot of interruptions, a lot of synchronous at the same time. Multiple activities are performed. If you are late, that is not. If you are polite, everything is still cool. You don't need to apologize. You just be very, very friendly and actually disrupt the process that's going on. We see that modern firms or multinational corporations or there's a lot of international farming investors. The Chinese, the Indians are really investing a lot at the moment. They have the problem with clock watching versus result. And you can watch the clock or you can actually perform. And that is a difficult process. So you need to invest a lot more in internal programs in order to be successful. A lot of nepotism takes place within the same tribe. If it's another tribe, it would be seen as outsider probably. So that's a problem. You need to find that balance. I'm coming soon. Well, that could be anything, but not soon. We have people that are good intermediates, and they're very useful actually, because they might understand the Western side. They might be able to help that message. But these people also, the fixers, like you would have in Latin America, it would probably help you a lot and prevent a lot of odd situations. Bureaucracy is very, very slow and very, very corrupt at times. You need a lot of small talk, eat, and no progress. And I'm not made for that personally. I don't have that patience, so I better ask somebody else. But it is something you have to deal with. But when you have a problem or when there is something you need your money at that moment and it is by a bank, you have situations where they say, no, we will not give you to you now. You're like, what? But even if you have something in a hotel safe, and people can really be awkward. But, get a life. You're in Zimbabwe. Email is unreliable, but that's also in a lot of other cultures, like for instance in Russia, where you always need to double check just before, because plans and schedules are not holy. They can change. People first. So you always need to reconfirm meetings, and you do that by a quick phone call. They love the phone. Announced visits work best, but drop-ins can at times be accepted, particularly if you're a Westerner. There's always a kind of exception for you, which probably local Zimbabweans would not get. People are really slow in the processes, and you need to really invest in the people. You need to be seen. Sending it all detailed in an email is not going to work there. It's over your multiple dinners that you progress, and probably visits at home that are going to give you the trust and the progress. Just a picture, but there you also see this. Actually, it's the same building that we saw on the. Yeah, it's on the bill, it's very, very visible, and it's a big city, but in Africa there are bigger cities. Relationships are more than contracts. I already told you that. So if you have a contract signed, it's not a security, and it means that and who's the judge? Is the judge buyable or not? So all these things, it's a really slow process as well. We see that people really ask which subcultural background within the country they have. Tribal identity is very important. Besides, they have their own languages, you know. Skilled workforce is a problem. So people say yes, 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 but you have no clue what they will do. Do they read textbook and lesson plan? So yeah, and diaspora is a serious issue because anybody who has that quality quickly leaves and tries to go elsewhere. Often you're seen as a direct source of money, and let's say pigment, but nowadays that's also Asian pigment is seen as, you know, free cash, and you have to be a little bit clever about what is realistic there. A flag. A flag, and then yeah, of course, in my desk research, the same web page. You can see that Zimbabwe is ranked among the most positive #2 in the countries to visit in 2025, and only a year and a half before, you can say it's ranked the world's 4th unhappiest country in the world. No matter what the journalist finds, it's going to be news value. Yeah, so those are the rankings. It doesn't always mean that much. So don't get fooled by that. Just go there and experience it yourselves. I want to talk a little bit about language. I have very little comprehension of anything in the region except probably Afrikaans, which sounds a lot like Dutch. But Swahili is for me pretty far away, as is the languages of Zimbabwe. There are many, and Ndembele are very similar to the Zulu. We got Xhosa, which we'll also see, but Shona would be the majority, as well as English. The English has a certain sound to it. You might not always recognize all the words, and people have what we call linguistical interference. So it means that grammar structures or pronunciation structures of Shona or Ndebele might influence the English, and the locals will understand, and for you have no clue what the sign says because they use the pronunciation ways of English to actually use, or the other way. So it's at times a bit challenging. Here we see the different alphabets. Particularly Shona has a lot of different letters in it, with very peculiar pronunciation aspects. I'm pretty bad at it, especially those click sounds. I have no clue, but I have. Yeah, the microphone is a bit, but it's a CCBS student who did this, so let's try again. Yeah, so actually this one has 4 click sounds. And you see that the Q and the X have a very different pronunciation, and you would not even recognize it, nor did the microphone. But this is Ndebele, the second most spoken language. I told you a little bit like Zulu in a way. And then it's very different. But you could see that this one is with a capital, because there it means the name of a person, and above it is the word for ant. So maybe one more time, so you have. All together. Now let's forget about it. But it's rich, and it's very old, and we have no clue about all these cultures. What I also really liked is that poetry is so powerful, and also within popular culture. So it's called Nyanduri, and these are word masters, but they're also word keepers. And this is the oral history. Oral history is before the writing and the documenting of history books and the history of tribes and people and kings. the way it was done in the Middle Ages, with a guy with a lute singing songs about famous knights and kings and heroines and gods and these kind of things. This is in Zimbabwe there is a poetry tour, and this is popular, this is part of popular culture. And there's also the audience that responds, and it's very active. And only if I spoke it, it would also be fun. But they praise poets and singers, or the combination of the both. So they keep the history, they keep the words of the past, and they perform. And nowadays also there's clothing, there's an act, and it's very interesting, but it's still very popular. And good speakers, like in South Asia, are liked and worshipped and praised particularly in the Shona culture, which is the majority culture of Zimbabwe. So interesting, and expect good speakers that have skills in saying what they want to say, and they use their emotion in a very studied and old historical way. And we could learn from the Nian Duri, I would say. Some teachers could. And having said that, I would like to finalize this short video lecture on a culture that I feel is unknown to a lot. I hope it was a little bit of the puzzle. Of course, it was hit and run Zimbabwe, Zimbo. But we see that there is more than you might have imagined. There are different things that are really old traditions and beautiful tribal ceremonies that are really special when you're there. It's something you will never forget. So I hope that you may savor Harari's culture, its wild nightlife, its delicate insect food, its homemade beers, and I hope that the mighty Zimbo in you will be released one day. Try it out. We have passports, and life is not expensive there if you don't get ripped off. So give it a shot. It's really worth the try, I would say. Having said that, I want to thank you dearly for joining to another part of the world, a big part of the world. And I hope that, one day you might also yourself try this. Doei doei. Bye bye. Ciao ciao. Tschüssi. Adios.